Yo, yo, what's going on? Live from beautiful West Seattle. It's me, CML, Travis Wu.
Magic players, much love. So, last week we made a video called Shame in the Magic Community,
Too much shame.
and we had some of you write in and say, I feel a lot of shame also. So, we want to do the exact opposite in this video and tell you why you should feel good,
Lots of pride.
why we should be proud as Magic players, and what we can do to make Magic more cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so...
There's an exciting future ahead of us. Magic is going to be cool again. It used to be cool. It'll be cooler.
So the point is, we want you to feel good, and if you participate, you can say, I'm proud to be a Magic player because whatever, post that in the comments, we would like to see that.
Absolutely.
So, CMO, why are you proud to be a Magic player?
Well, I'm proud of the friends that I made from the game. I'm proud of all I've been able to learn about psychologizing people in that context. I'm proud to be part of a game with such an ancient history that is hopefully going to be cool again.
Hopefully going to be cool again.
Hopefully going to be very cool again. Not that it isn't cool now in its own individual way, but, you know, hopefully it'll get even cooler in a more inclusive, encompassing, socially changing sort of way like it was in the 90s. And I'm proud, most of all, of being able to think of myself in a more complicated way. Because of Magic, it really teaches you to take a look at what you're doing wrong and then get better at it within the game, and hopefully it'll be able to do that outside the game too.
Yeah, so, I mean, my reasons of pride, I guess, have a lot to do with thinking the game itself is super good.
For sure.
I'm proud to be the type of person, or be associated with the type of person who takes responsibility for losing, or I guess that's not 100% true of all the community, but
Well, if you want to get better,
it's more common in the community than in the average world, because we're taught to do that in the, okay, we need to take responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be associated with creative explorers who are trying out new bad card, you know, whatever, like it's a platform for innovation. I'm proud to be associated with the type of people who go and meet people and play games and get together on Fridays or whatever. I'm proud to be associated with math type people and intellectuals, right? It's just it's an intellectual game of the highest order that brings people together in person. I'm proud to be part of this counterculture, which is not all about the internet, but is about actually bringing people together.
Absolutely. Yeah, hopefully Magic can adapt itself to the internet better in the years to come. We have, of course, a bunch of reasons to believe this will be true, and we'll talk about it later, but I think you put your finger on something very important to me, which is that Magic is challenging. Because Magic is challenging, it attracts a large group of smart people, and that kind of sense of community of smart people who have a certain amount of individualism and aren't necessarily indulging in the groupthink of a corporation, for example, can be very, very valuable after college, especially for individuals.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Like you or
Let
me.
me point in that in a little bit. So we see Magic players go out, not always, but do cool things in the world.
For sure.
Yeah, innovate. You know, you can be an innovator in this limited space, and you learn what it means to innovate, is to try new things repetitively and iterate. It lays down the formula, and you get this experience, you know. I had this experience with Living End. So many people were like, oh, this deck's bad, or whatever, people missed it. I had this experience where there's a mass community, people had kind of missed it, people were wrong about it, and me and a few others were correct, and having that experience inside that environment. And that experience is available to a lot of people in Magic, right? It's available at the F&M level. You beat someone with your rogue deck and you're like, it changes everything. It's like, wait a minute, like the popular thought is not always correct, right? So
Yeah.
it's a very healthy, I think, to innovation in general.
I strongly agree. Well, I think that Magic was founded as part of its basic game design and viral marketing principle to appeal to everybody's need to think themselves unique. Even if you're a kid and you bought a starter deck or you got a couple packs for Christmas and you threw them together with an intro pack, your deck is unique.
It's your deck, yeah.
It may not be unique in a way that's quote optimized unquote or whatever, but yeah, it's your deck and it feels like it's new, and on one hand you probably don't want to change it because you're invested in it even if it's not the greatest, which is the dark side of
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
but yeah, like you get to look at it, this is your thing, you made it, that's something to be proud of. Kids get to have that kind of scope, like casual players get to have
Mhm.
that kind of scope, and I
Mhm.
think going forward a very healthy marketing strategy for Magic, of which I'd be very proud, would be promoting the interests and stoking the creativity and the pride of these casual players more often, because they
Mhm.
compose 94% of the community, but they also compose maybe 10% of the articles you read at the very most,
Yes.
and so on.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Like, if you want to get people into the stores to play, because only 6% of Magic players ever make it into F&M, only a fraction of those ever make it to a PTQ
Mhm.
or their
Mhm.
what the Wizards Play
We need to
Network
give
was
these
saying.
people more reason to be proud, a bigger voice, right?
Yeah,
You know, you
absolutely.
go to CFB or SCG, that's not that's not what everyone wants to read, you know, which is why we're seeing the rise of stuff like the kind of stuff I do, MTG Goldfish, Rogue Deck Builder, etc., etc. There's so much room for that of not even exactly casual, but like
We'll say
we're playing
individualistic.
for the game. Yeah, but we're also it's like it's not individualistic in the context of let's win a tournament,
Mm-hmm.
but individualistic and yeah, and I mean that's reason to be proud of creation, right? It's like it's difficult to create things and to innovate in the real world, right?
Definitely.
It's not easy in Magic, but that gives you the confidence to do it and lays the blueprint for it.
Well, you're making a new form. Um, right, right. Like if Magic had more pride in itself in a collective sense, then
Mhm.
the kind of content that would be produced for it would be more encompassing and it would be more attractive to people outside the game. Instead,
Mhm.
we get a very narrow band of what appeals to competitive players, and that's cool with me. I like looking at a dice deck list.
Mhm.
I like staying up on the
Mhm.
current meta. I like even reading
Mhm.
about Living End's new innovations, extra Simian spirit guides, Architects of Will with the watery grave or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm all about that, but not everybody is.
it's true. Yeah.
So the more content that we have that takes an honest look at the game in all of its facets from top to bottom, then the more prideful, genuinely so, we can be. And you know, a
Uh-huh.
lot of the content that
Mhm.
we end up reading a lot of the time has this air of positivity about it and self
Mhm.
improvement, but it doesn't seem to me like pride so much as the appearance of pride a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Like we're trying to convince ourselves that this is the coolest thing ever, but what if
I'll
we
tell you
instead
why I'm
made it
proud
the
of it.
coolest thing ever?
I'll tell you why I'm proud of it. I had a really cool experience the other night. So we talked about there's a counterculture. The current culture now is you play Hearthstone, you play League, you play Dota. You're on the computer. Maybe you have your mic on and you're talking to buddies on Vent. The
For sure.
counterculture is bringing people together now. That's become counterculture,
Yeah.
and arguably Magic was 20. I mean,
Yeah, Magic was
yeah,
hella
yeah,
counterculture.
yeah. So we did this cube draft,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's casual format
All your
on
favorite cards and you draft
Saturday.
them, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't even about the cube draft. We got together and we started talking about goings on in the world and the economy and so on. And I felt like I was part of this social, intellectual elite kind of where that's facilitated by the game because we're not going to say let's all get together and talk about these issues like no one's doing that. But
Yeah.
so Magic is this vehicle to that sort of thing. I mean,
A way to meet smart people.
exactly, yeah. So like it's
Well, that's what everybody's looking for
the
in
cube
life.
draft the cube draft itself is kind of a facade for it's a vehicle for discussion, right? It's just such a great social mixer that I mean there's nothing really like that and I feel that people
Well, you could go to a bar with the homies, but
it's
you're right.
it's
Magic can be very nice. Like, I started getting into the game again because, you know, Will, who we were hanging out
mhm
with last week,
mhm
my oldest friend in life, gave Travis
mhm
his first Magic cards.
mhm
And he started doing drafts with us in 2010, like at my house, and the whole point was for friends to get together.
Sorry if there's a volume change. You can adjust that now.
Okay.
Also, Book's moved. I'm moving to California, so.
Bam, baby. So we had these get-togethers, and sure, the whole point was to have the pleasure of each other's company, but also it was interesting to talk about the game. However, what if you just get together over and over again and you want to talk about the game because it's so good? It's like the funniest joke in the universe.
That happens too.
Like a Magic player is very interesting, but a group of Magic players talking at a bar about Magic can be like the most incomprehensible thing in the universe.
Yes, yeah. Well, I have pride in bringing those. My concern and perhaps a root of the shame that I've felt in the game is that my time gets lost in the game. I'm just like I hate if I'm putting my time into a black hole. It's like, oh man, all I'm doing is like putting resources into building infrastructure inside this narrow theoretical existence which does not have direct application to the world. Like, fuck that. I don't want to be, like, what is making a living end meaning, right? I want to turn around and apply this, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is the real cool thing about the game of like, innovation in Magic equals innovation in this. Social gatherings equal this. Intellectualism in this applies to life in this way.
So what's the best way, do you think, for Magic to become more of a vehicle to stuff that's directly applicable in life? Because I agree.
I think it already is. Like, I think F&M culture is amazing. I think that it is so important, actually, because it's you just don't get that over the internet, and the internet can be very stifling to discussion that one-on-one isn't.
I agree. My ideas on this were, first of all, Wizards made F&M roughly the same time, or I guess a few years later than the Pro Tour. Arguably, it was a much more successful initiative with F&M at one end and the PT on the other end. I've been going the last few weeks to conduct, quote, market research, unquote, just to see what, even the casual competitive players are looking for. Because you have to remember that these people are still just the 6% of Magic players who have made it out there. But there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot more diversity, which is really good. And we can come back to that later. There's diversity of backgrounds, ideas, gender, ethnicity, whatever.
Well, let's stay on that now.
Terrific.
I mean, I have reason to be proud in that it's not all inclusive, but it's fairly inclusive and it's cool. You get to meet different types of people. I mean, traveling is really cool. Or you go to these big events. Now, the smaller events, you get different types of people, but the big events, you meet people from different countries, from different backgrounds, different ages, different. I mean, we go on and
Lifestyles,
on. Yeah, different
desires.
lifestyles. I mean, on the surface, a lot of these people look the same, but that's not necessarily true. Like, diversity of thought is super important, and that's something that Magic contributes to. Not just diversity of appearance, although that is also important, and I think a reason to be proud of, like, seeing different types of people. It's like, we're not all this one way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that Magic culture was kind of monolithic for a long time and didn't feel inclusive, even if it was trying to be inclusive. And I think by and large, most of the change will come from the top down.
Definitely.
I don't know about the competitive events, though. It was sort of hard to make friends at like a GP or the PT. For example, I don't even think it's necessarily the competition. It's a bizarre environment in which to do so. And traveling, of course, is great as long as you don't find yourself inside a convention center.
Play the game, see the inside of convention centers.
Lost in the game, baby.
Yeah.
So just to bring it back to F&M really quickly, just a small sample of the people that I've talked to. One of them said that she'd been playing Magic for a month and it was quite impressive, but then she confessed she'd been playing Hearthstone for the last several months, and that's, some direct applications in the real world. Like, that's some cross-marketing stuff right there. Her significant other was also in attendance, and he applied to be on Magic Digital Next, so they're trying to build a bigger platform. so you can have different roles within the game as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I met a guy who had his own digital card game that he was peddling as an app. I met another few people.
Oh yeah, there's so much innovation in this, and
Yeah, like it
Book of
attracts
Trade,
creativity.
MTG Guru, all these different apps is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was like just a different card game entirely. Like people who were playing Magic that didn't play Magic before, or Magic players are playing other games, and Magic can be so time intensive, and like there's a number of other ways. Like it can feel sort of insular
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time. Like Magic players don't play other games, or vice versa. Now I think
I think
that's
that's changing.
it's definitely
As the board
changing.
game genre expands, like a
Yeah.
card game. I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats. I
Yeah.
think Hearthstone's great for Magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that
It's not
I want to see.
competition.
Yes, I want. I mean, in some degrees it is. However, the bigger the card game / digital card game genre grows, the better for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the reasons why Magic Online has not improved in 10 years is why no competition. Duh. Right. Bam. There's competition now. I expect to see Magic Digital improve because they have there's incentive now. There was no incentive before.
Uh-huh.
Or there was a little incentive.
Just
right?
not enough. Like the inertia was just too strong to cancel it out.
Exactly.
Well, the thing about these players at FNM though is that all of them, when I spoke to them about Magic potentially changing and becoming more encompassing, were very into the idea. Like these weren't
Mm-hmm.
your reactionaries, even if they were very invested in the
Mm-hmm.
game from a social
Mm-hmm.
and economic perspective and playing paper. These were people who said, I want everything to stay the way it is. It was people who said, it's okay if we have to tear down MTGO and build it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if all my revised duels go to $10. Which it might not be. But it's probably not going to happen. Like, if we have that attitude, like, I don't even think Magic Online and Magic and Paper will compete with each other. They were sort of...
Exactly, they just exist in different spaces.
Yeah, and
Like,
they can help each other.
Paper Magic is so unique. It's like nothing to do with Hearthstone, right?
Right.
One you play on the computer, one you go to a establishment and play with other people. Like, it's so different, yeah.
Well, one thing I would bring up, here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
In Magic, the competition
Mm-hmm.
individually
Mm-hmm.
makes us better as a collective. Because we get better, we have to face each other. What if the same thing is true for the industry as a whole? And then a lot of the social problems with Magic came from not having competition, or like miming competition for the last decade. For example, I don't think that like card shops are really competing with each other. They're all part of the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But what if they were?
Yeah, it's like if you have a bunch of Starbucks next to each other, are they all cannibalizing each other? Or is that just maybe more options, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
Market research might show one way or
Mhm.
the other. I know that the LGSs have often cannibalized each other because it's kind of a free for all. But hopefully Wizards will be able to handle the secondary market.
well, that just,
you know.
in my opinion, just forces competition, which is
Yeah.
another reason to be proud, and it's a cool thing, is you can't just open it up and say, these are my 10 miles. Like, you actually have to do a good job, or someone is going to come in and cannibalize you. Sorry, right?
For sure. Absolutely, yeah. But in order for competition to be healthy, there should be more ways to win, I think. It can be often difficult to win in these
Mhm.
entrepreneurial or
Mm-hmm.
individual Magic endeavors, which is, I think,
So,
what I want to see changed.
I want to talk about pride in tournament Magic. So, we talked about this in our shame video. When I was 14, I kind of stopped playing Magic because I thought it wasn't cool. I wanted to be more social. I wanted to be cool or whatever. Talk to girls, get a girlfriend, etc. And later, whatever. I'm a fucking 14-year-old kid in public school. I don't think my story is so uncommon. Then later on, once I felt like I was more established, whatever, and that it wasn't going to hurt me socially, that's when I went back to Magic. And it wasn't until I won a Pro Tour qualifier and qualified for the Pro Tour that I was very proud. And the pride in it made it cool in the school. All of a sudden, we had different people playing at lunch in the Marine Science Mr. Walford P. Spangenberg's room. And there was a mix of people. There were nerds and there were athletes, and I kind of bridged that gap. However, I mean, it was very cool at the time because it's like, yo, I'm gonna go play for 40 grand. I'm gonna go to LA. I'm gonna miss a couple days of school. You know, it's like, where's Travis? Right, that was a cool thing. However, 10 years later, the prizes haven't changed. It's very hard for me to be proud in tournament Magic, and that makes it. I still support it, and I support people competing. I understand. I've gone through that. But it's harder for me to be like, oh, tournament Magic is so fucking cool. It's like, because now that we're living in the kind of the real economy of jobs, like in the context of high school, it's a lot of money. But
well, at our nerd high school too, where being smart was actually cool.
yeah, that was perhaps unusual.
Definitely. It was a real privilege, but it wasn't the real world. In a lot of ways.
Yeah, maybe not. I think that being cool has gotten cooler.
Sure.
I don't know what it was in the past. But the point is, if Magic improved the Pro Tour tournament structure, just put in more money or whatever, more people would turn around and say, hey, everyone, I play Magic.
Absolutely.
It's a cool thing to do, and then, wow, it's cool, okay, I'm in, right?
Yeah, like if this is your source of income from a stream, people are well aware that, or of our generation, that our jobs are mainly bullshit. Like, you don't want to have to do a bullshit job, but a lot of us feel pressure to do them because our ability to conceptualize the world is far outpacing our ability to change it or deal with it, and Magic can be kind of that in microcosm. Help you to understand the world, but also not always empower you to do it through the tournament structure, and I think that's why they're putting a lot more money in it in the near future. That's something to be very excited about and proud of. It was also Magic's original mission statement was to empower people. Like Peter Atkinson had his quote where he created the Pro Tour and he said we wanted to make a new lifestyle opportunity for gamers, fresh out of college, fresh out of school, to come and be professionals. He wanted to empower them. For Magic to be great again, you've got to empower people.
Make Magic great again.
Make Magic cool again.
Make Magic cool again.
Make Magic cool again.
We need to empower people. What? So for more... Yeah, man, like we need superstars who make big money, right?
Strongly agree.
Yeah, I mean, they have that in... Not everyone. We talked about the League, Dota, StarCraft, but, I mean,
Yes.
we need a boxer, we need... Yeah, we need
LeBron.
We need LeBron, or we need just cooler... I mean, I think a lot of that is in... That's one of the reasons why I push the physical fitness, self-development aspect of the thing, because it's easy when everyone's really fit. Like, it adds to the coolness. It adds to the ease of the pride. It's like,
For sure.
yeah,
Well, Wizards is a company very concerned with optics. They should be into it.
they should be into it. I mean, why have we seen Kibler's rise? He's an athletic-looking person, right?
Yeah, he's a handsome man and he's a fantastic dancer.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't seen him dance myself, but
I can tell you from first-hand experience, Brian Kibler is the best dancer, hands down, on the Magic Pro Tour.
well, I haven't seen enough Magic players dance to really know. But
Number 2 might
but
be...
I don't want to. I don't. You know what? I don't
Common
have pride
Woods.
in ranking Magic players on their ability to dance, because that's discouraging to people who are not good at dancing. Dancing is an expression of pride. I don't
Sure.
want to say Kibler is better. It's like, you know, I don't. Yeah.
Not necessarily.
I'm not a fan of that. Like.
I have a friendly... Like, dancing doesn't have to be competitive.
Yeah, dancing does not have to be competitive. And
Not everything
there's
about
a lot of
Magic.
good dancers you haven't seen dance. So why are we gonna assume that he's right?
I don't know, my sample size is small, you're right. But coming back to the previous point, yeah, like what if Magic had a more encompassing demographic? Well, it was founded to do that. 23 years ago, it wanted to make gaming, tabletop gaming in particular, beyond just the scope of like a D&D player or someone who would come into a shop. It wanted to make gaming cool, and it succeeded spectacularly at that. I just think of new developments as a continuation of that policy rather than something that veers off.
You know, I think it actually has become cooler in the past couple of years, and I've seen this. We've seen this at Card Kingdom. Now, this isn't true of everywhere,
Sure.
But it's becoming cool just because of happenings in the world. What we're seeing is influx of people into tech jobs. This is happening in every single city. People just move there after college or in their 20s, whatever.
Hmm.
And not everyone, especially after university, so many people are disillusioned with the bar scene. But they still want to do something social on Friday night. And if you just move somewhere, you don't have a bunch of phone numbers of people to call and a cube to set up, or I mean, that would be the ultimate. Like, right? It's like, all right, what am I gonna do? Okay, F and M. I mean, if we look at Card Kingdom, it's people are very social. It is Amazon employees. It's various tech type people that are well groomed and dressed, attractive people, smart, with money. They're not necessarily drinking. Not that drinking is bad, but they're doing this intellectual outlet. So that's something that I've seen where it's like, okay, very cool. This scene.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is different here,
Mm-hmm.
especially because though it is happening everywhere, it's happening here
Mm-hmm.
more so than anywhere else. Some would argue to a somewhat slightly unhealthy extreme, but if you go to card shops elsewhere, like in Vancouver, or a random city, let's say Peoria, Illinois, Springfield, Mass, or whatever, a lot of it exists quite unchanged from what it was 10 years ago or so. And Magic, like you brought up, it used to be kind of a driving force behind these changes as opposed to something that just benefited from these changes. And making Magic cool again would make it so it didn't just join society, it changed society as a type of counterculture itself.
Sure. I think it's doing that just by existing. Like it's established this. It established an outlet that was well positioned for the trend of the internet.
Yes.
It was by capitalizing off of change in the world, it's also creating change in the world.
Well, it created a change in the world. I think Magic is, along with poker and StarCraft, the precursor to modern esports, which are very much in line with Peter Atkinson's original vision for empowering Magic players and empowering individuals, basically making the community and success within the game is individualistic as playing the game itself. Like, you could have your own independent initiatives and you could empower yourself by playing the game, and it would be something that was relevant to the outside world. Well, that's what makes gaming culture cool now. That's what would make Magic something to be very, very proud of. Because it already is, but it's difficult to tell people about it. Because, like, if you notice,
it's a combination of
like, if you notice the kinds of media
chess
coverage,
and poker.
yeah,
It's Magic the Gathering. It's fucking sweet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, if you looked at old Magic ads from the '90s, like, it was super funny. It had a good sense of humor about itself.
It did, yeah. Some of them were pretty cringy. But, yeah.
Maybe I just like them. But the Hearthstone ads from today are very much in the same style. They just have a million more views.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to see, though, these changes where we can be proud of Magic again in the near future.
I think it's going to get bigger and bigger just because people are... It's just that outlet. What else... What is there like it
Exactly.
that the world really needs? I mean, people feel boxed by the internet. They want to go meet people. People are disillusioned by the conventional, traditional social scene.
Sure.
People are getting older and they're not going to play pickup sports necessarily. They are... I just see it getting... I just see it providing a vital function in facilitating in-person discourse, which is super, super important.
Definitely. Well, then we have to improve the discourse of the internet in Magic too, because the main sites that peddle cards and make content are very monolithic. The content's very much homogeneous and meant to appeal to this very small demographic, or the 1% of competitive Magic players, for example, which doesn't grow the game. It's not inclusive. The interesting thing about the internet is that, like, on one hand you can play League and your partners will yell at you for an hour and it'll be a lot worse than playing FNM, it actually blows my mind that.
God, it'll just make you fucking furious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then there'll just be this bad vibe, and you'll have binged on it, and it'll seem like your time was a void, like you were saying. Like, what if I develop Living End and it doesn't matter? I look back upon it, and it feels like a void. But also, the internet, if Magic has a real offering for it, which it doesn't really right now, could be tremendously empowering. It could, like the woman that I talked to at FNM last week said, yeah, I started playing a Hearthstone. If Magic had a digital game, then it would be less intimidating for somebody like me, because if somebody were a prick, then I could just block them. At FNM, I can't just block them, and not all cities are like Seattle where we can go to the bar and have drinks and draft at the same time. If Magic has a more diverse array of offerings, in addition to the bar scene like FNM or the PT or whatever, it also has an online thing that is encompassing as opposed to Magic Online. It has more effective introductory products and so on. And that, I think, would be the way to grow the game.
Yeah.
You get a diversity of discourse.
Yeah, diversity of discourse is big. It's funny that you mentioned, oh, I can't block someone. I definitely hear stories sometimes about run-ins at FNM, shaming for various reasons, because of noob or because of background or however it's perceived, and then that person just doesn't go back.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's common, and that's how it homogenizes.
Definitely.
And I feel that it's at more risk of homogenizing a certain kind of thinking than certain type of appearance of people. But I mean,
I think I agree.
Yeah.
Like, can I tell a brief story?
Oh yeah.
The first time I played competitive Magic, signed up for my DCI number, even enjoyed that 10% or 6% that ever have, versus the 90% of people that would love to get out of the kitchen table and love to come play Magic, but they find it intimidating for any number of reasons I can't argue are super invalid, especially in light of this experience I had. It was the Judgment pre-release 11 or 12 years ago, and Will Martin drove us down, or had his mom drive us down to this basement of the hotel next to Wizards HQ down in Renton. We had a sealed thing, and the whole culture was completely incomprehensible to me. Like, I didn't know that, okay, I'm supposed to mark the cards here. Like, nobody was sort of lifting a hand to help. And, like, I had to sign up for the DCI number, and all these things are kind of terrifying.
The registration is...
Yeah, deck
My
reg.
bag is the SAT, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, even at the PT, it wasn't super clear, oh, I'm supposed to go to this pod number rather than this. Like, everybody sort of assumes that you know what you're doing. The cultural barriers of Magic, I think, are way more of an impediment to people joining than any in-game complexity. But anyway, I register the pool, we're playing, and then my deck isn't great, whatever. In the third round, I faced this guy, and like, I've only played kitchen table Magic, and the kitchen table Magic for us did not admit of the second main phase. So I'd pick up a card, and the guy would be like, hold on, it's still my turn. I have stuff to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like...
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, hold on, I'm not done yet. I'm like, okay. So then I do it again just as a tick, because it's what I remember. He's like, if you do that again, I'm going to call the judge. Well, it was super screwed anyway. His deck was way better than mine.
Sure, yeah.
This pissed me off, like, to the point where I didn't play for a decade. And, I think games should promote the kind of confidence where that just rolls off your back. But I've had that experience. I've gotten pissed over the sorts of stupid piddling shit that I should not have, even a decade later when I came back to Magic.
Noob!
Yeah.
You're a noob. What? You're wasting my time, noob.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not wasting our time.
Or just like a bad experience with judges or stuff like that. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong when
if it's a 20 million person thing, then there's going to be all sorts of problems guaranteed.
Definitely.
And it doesn't necessarily characterize the whole, although
No,
that
it
might
doesn't,
characterize
but it can
the
for a
whole,
person.
like, and like, oh god, I hate noobs. Like, what do you? Yeah, do you want it to just be you and your one friend, right? Like, we need.
So, what do you think would liberalize the attitude towards new players?
Depends what you mean by liberalize. You mean
what would make people more accepting of them and more eager to lend a hand?
the realization of the importance of it, of our stake in the game. We have a stake in the game.
Exactly.
If the game succeeds, it must grow. So we have a stake in new players
Yeah.
having a good time and coming back.
Exactly.
And
We have to
telling
get
their
individual gain from it. Like, the new players
Yeah,
have
we
to be
can't
not
expect
just...
people to be altruistic necessarily, and so
Right, well, you don't want the new player necessarily to be this person that, like, if I fight them at F&M and I lose, then I've risked everything and lost, and if I win, I've risked nothing. And gotten nothing. You want to think of it in a more egalitarian way, like poker, where we were told not to berate the fish because they were our living.
Yeah,
it was idiotic.
Yeah, and well, in Magic, there's like, it requires a certain level of empathy because many of us are there. Our pride is in tournament success. Our pride is in winning. Our pride is in competition. But we can also take pride in someone else's success and say, wow, it feels, must feel great to beat me. Like,
yeah,
congrats.
For sure. Like,
this
was fun. It was a different round, like we talked about.
Yeah, but what's the utility in
Magic.
that? Can we really expect people to be like, well, I like it when my opponents win. I think it's okay to be pissed off as well. Emotions are real.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if there's nothing at stake, then why bother playing the game?
Exactly.
I think there has to be something at stake, but then paper makes it problematic because you have to go out, invest your whole day in it. You have to play against players that you feel are less qualified than you, and at the end of the day, no matter how mediocre your opposition is and no matter how good you are, you're going to often lose, and the tournament is likely to be a disappointment from a competitive perspective.
Oh yeah, that's a given. Yeah.
Which is fine, like the small margins draw people in, but it would be nice to have large sample sizes or less travel requirements or less investment in terms of time or money or emotions, and this is where online could be good.
Also, that's another reason to be proud, is there is a culture of, and a certain reality of fail, 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 ding, 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 I won one, right? So we see that for me it took like 30 PTQs.
Damn.
Right? I believe it took Christian Calcano over 100 or something. But what we see is, if you're really consistent and you hear these stories, you keep going, it's like, wow, and it mirrors the real world of the most innovative, successful people. Edison has 1,000 patents on the light bulb, right? It was fail, 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 progress, fail, 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 ding, light bulb, right? So,
definitely.
So, again, this is something we take from Magic and take outside of Magic. Wow, we can really change things if we just keep working on it, right?
I strongly agree that we should promote this narrative. Like, we should make this narrative as realistic as possible within Magic, and I don't think it is.
Which narrative?
The one where you fail a bunch and then you succeed because you tried hard. I think what happens in Magic more often are two things, where either you fail a bunch and then you get a job as a content creator or a Wizards person, and then you don't have to fail anymore because you don't have to play the game. So then you stop innovating.
It's true, yeah.
Or getting better. And then the other one is that you just fail, 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 and then maybe you succeed or it doesn't matter, or maybe you just keep failing, and you have this expectation that you should succeed because you really should. The game ought to have that. If you read a bunch of the Magic content from a mainstream site, then you could be forgiven for thinking that, yeah, it is fail, 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 succeed, and there is this trajectory. But I think a lot of the outside world is able to see through that.
It's true. I mean, that's more for tournament, but yeah, like, once you get to a major site, you, like, make it, and then you're at the ceiling.
Yeah. No, I mean, just the stories that everybody has, it's sort of this personal responsibility that they have to take for if their lives are devoted to playing Magic and things are going poorly for the time being. But it's like, no, it's not an individual problem. It's not self-critique. It's not self-improvement necessarily. It's that it's masquerading as that, but it can just be a sort of insecurity towards seeing things change for the better. But what if they do? Then that would be pride. If we had pride, we wouldn't have to proclaim so loudly. We have pride, we could show that we did it by having super cool events, big streams.
We wouldn't have to make this video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We could talk about different topics.
Yeah.
I mean, we would talk about Magic being something to be proud of, but it would be in the context of, okay, here we are at a packed arena, or here we are at a tournament with lots of stake, or here was a super cool play breakdown. Yeah, exactly. Here's this audience, everybody is psyched up, And I think we're not too far away from that, because Magic ought to be something that's defined, like you said earlier, by its virtues. What does what other games have all the virtues that Magic has? What games have this history and this quality?
I don't think anything does. Although
Right.
I want to go back to this, the Magic counterculture and having pride in that. Like the mainstream thing now is esports, and is to have these arenas and these people and like culture is a viewership, participation by viewership. Magic is participation by playing, right? So, I mean, we definitely have people playing League or playing Dota, but the fact that these viewership numbers are ballooning into the hundreds of thousands says there's 100,000 people who are not playing right now, right? Perhaps the viewership on the Pro Tour on Friday is not good because people are at F&M, right? That's the counterculture. Is I don't watch coverage. I play Magic,
Right.
That is, I'm a participant. I take ownership, right? And I think that's a cool thing about Magic that uniquely positions it and is a reason to be proud of it.
Well, it's true. I think Magic is more fun to play than those games, but on the other hand, I don't think that the two are at all at odds with each other. Like, if coverage were good, were compelling, as it was in Hearthstone, for example, would you watch it?
Maybe. I actually don't think I would, because that's just not, I don't think that's the culture of the game.
I would. I think we have to
I mean,
change the culture so that more people would. Like, it's very popular to view things, and
I
it also is
believe so.
participatory.
I believe that you're right, but I also believe it's not a problem if they fail at doing that, because the narrative that I don't watch, I do, is a great one, and that's currently the truth of it. We've got 20 million players, which is one of the biggest player bases of any game in the world, and barely anyone watches.
Yeah.
The reality is, we have a culture of participation, right?
It's true. We do, but what if we also had a culture of more than 6% participating in a paper tournament? I also think that these viewers, by and large, do play the games and enlarge the player base, which enlarges the viewership, and so on. And again, I want to add that this is Magic's original vision. I think our culture of participating is cool. Our culture of individualism is very cool, but it's not at all at odds with increasing viewership, because without
Certainly,
it's hard to have
I'm not against it. I'm just preparing myself for Magic to fail at that.
Yeah, sure, but it's worth trying, because for the individual like us, like there's very little risk to Hasbro trying to make Magic more of a thing where it can be countercultural. Like, Magic can't be described as countercultural right now because it doesn't really change the world. It doesn't have independent voices that act transgressively as they did in the past. It doesn't enlarge the definition of gamers necessarily.
I think that it does. I mean, over reasons that I tried to express earlier, of creating a different narrative where there's a narrative that a gamer is in his mom's basement, and League doesn't necessarily change that. I'm not hating on you, but Dota, you're still on your computer. Magic creates a new narrative about a gamer and it's been building and building and building and caught on this cultural shift and tech scene influx to cities, where it is, a gamer is someone who goes and meets strangers on Friday night. Like, it's like, oh, you go and you actually go meet strangers on Friday? Like, yeah, I do that, you know?
It's great.
So...
It's only 6%.
Sure.
And moreover, we could say mom's basement.
Well, what are the other 94% doing? They're meeting people and playing, right? But just with a friend or a family and a couple family members in the house, right?
Yeah, it's obviously totally cool. Like, this is how I played for years and years. But maybe we should make that barrier between going out and meeting strangers and playing in the kitchen less obtrusive. Because I feel like there's a lot of barriers to entry for playing competitive Magic.
It's true.
For example, and then getting that sort of social experience out of it. And we can't really say mom's basement for Magic, but maybe we could say mom's kitchen table. Maybe we could even say like mom's apartment in general. If you look at where the pros are shacked up on Enter the Battlefield, like, if it doesn't empower them at the top.
By the way, I wanted to mention, because I haven't watched Enter the Battlefield and you keep bringing this up. It's possible they don't, maybe create the perception they live with their parents. I'm not sure they actually do. because for my filming, Nathan Holt and Sean Kornhauser came to my parents' house and interviewed my parents. I wasn't living there at the time. I actually flew back to Seattle. But if I had been in there and you had watched the movie, you may have gotten the impression that I lived there, right? So, I'm just saying I don't know. You said because I've heard
no
you
hate
repeat.
or anything because I lived at my parents' house until quite recently, and I'm 27. But I wouldn't say explicitly that he does live in
Okay,
the same
sure.
apartment.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and Reed too, and it's not a knock on them as people, it's a knock on the culture for not empowering them and creating a more appealing image to the outside world as well. That could be something to be proud of. Like if your success in Magic brought you, in addition to going to a convention center and being in a movie that is very much a corporate vehicle for Wizards and probably had very little appeal or viewership outside of Magic. For example, like what if you made a documentary on esports from Vice? What if you made a documentary about Hearthstone players traveling the world? Or this one guy, streaming from the top of his flat in London. Now that would be something to be, I think, proud of within the game. And Magic players used to do that. Like Finkel, for example, runs a hedge fund. Kibler is massively successful running many different games. Mike Long makes $1 million a month doing marketing.
Mike Long.
Yeah, Mike Long. And a bunch of the players, Jordan Berkowitz, David Williams, Justin Bonomo, were massively successful at poker. I think to make Magic cool again, what we got to do is
Cool things outside of Magic.
Yeah, have Magic be a platform for doing cool things outside of Magic,
Yes.
and having outside things of Magic be a platform just for playing Magic too. Both ways.
Yeah, it's nice if it blends in the fabric of society. I mean, the way that I see it, and I mentioned, Magic players, by participating, we are part of this kind of social, cultural elite or whatever. I mean, the way that I would see Magic, which would be very cool, is, you meet these Kibler types, these Finkel types, these Berkowitz types, whatever. You get them around the table, and you're not going to be talking about Magic, right? You're going to be playing Magic, you're not going to be talking about it. So that's the kind of experience that I like to have with Cube, I mean, now we're talking in circles, which is maybe a sign to to
tying it all together.
Yeah, but the that's how it kind of blends with the fabric inside and outside. Is inside the game you have this innovation, but it brings together influencers outside the game.
Definitely.
In physical person.
This is something. Yeah, this is the direction to go in, and I would argue that would be something to be very proud of. The main idea that I have is that Magic does have these virtues that are unique. It does have this history of being a terrific game. It does have the paper cachet, which is very cool. It does have a way to meet people and make friends even if you're not at the very top. But it also has a lot of history of being passively, not deliberately exclusionary, and not particularly accessible to the outside world, and having a sort of corporate myopia behind its decisions and being very intimidating to people who, for example, don't want to be completely committed to playing the game all the time. If we're able to harness those virtues, though, I think those are way more important. They're way more easily promoted by Magic than they would be acquired by a different game. And I think Magic's virtues are also a lot easier to keep than anything else. Like, I think that they define the game, or they ought to define the game, more so than its cultural idiosyncrasies that make people not so excited to play. And that would be the realization of pride. At that point, you would have the game as it was originally intended, bringing more people into gaming, creating a lifestyle opportunity for gamers, having real diversity and cultural relevance, and so on. And I think we're not so far from that. In the meantime, we can be proud of Brewing Living End, or Martyr, or having these good conversations.
Bringing people physically together, for me, is by far the strongest argument for Magic.
Definitely.
to talk over a table and not to watch Game of Thrones. I like Game of Thrones, but last night we got together and watched Game of Thrones. No productive conversation over that.
Yeah?
It was you just shut up and you watch the TV or whatever, but like, you know, gaming is a different sort of vehicle. Anyways, I think that that's really everything that I have, but we want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
We want to know, why are you proud to be a gamer? Why are you proud to be a Magic player?
How has it changed your life for the better? What sorts of opportunities have you had? What do you see happening in the future? And
Yes.
what would you like to happen to
How
Magic?
can we make Magic more cool?
How can you be more proud to play Magic?
Yes.
Because I don't think it's an individual issue. It's a cultural one. You got to change the culture, baby.
Mm-hmm. It's super interesting. CML, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Follow CMLrights.com. CML is awesome on Twitter.
Absolutely.
Although Twitter is bad for your health.
Twitter's very bad for
Follow
your
me on
mental health.
Snapchat, Travis D. Woo.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.